It is Monday, September 30th, 2019, 8:01 p.m. My name is Kessie Anderson, and welcome back to Heresiarch.
Heresiarch. Heresy. An originator or chief advocate of a heresy. Heresiarch. Heresiarch. French heretic, the ecclesiastical Latin for Greek hereticos, able to choose.
To jump right in, we're going to discuss the first Noahide law. Do not profane God's oneness in any way. The casual observer will look at this and will compare it to the 10 Commandments. I am the Lord thy God, thou shalt have no other gods before me. That's the first of the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven images. That's commandment number 2. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. That is commandment number 3. Now, in the 7 Noahide Laws, do not profane God's oneness in any way. Do not blaspheme God. Those two, everybody thinks, are synonymous with the first 3 in the 10 Commandments. Well, that is where you're 100% wrong. Why is that? Well, let's first look at do not profane God's oneness in any way. You must understand, these people are masters of the written word. Communication is the #1 game that they play. To step back, do not profane God's oneness in any way. Let's look up what profanity means. Right, so the word profane, relating or devoted to that which is not sacred or biblical, secular rather than religious, of a person not initiated into religious rites or any esoteric knowledge, of a person or their behavior not respectful of orthodox religious practice, irreverent. Treat something sacred with irreverence or disrespect. It's Latin in origin, Old French, Latin profanus, outside the temple, not sacred. Old French profane, heathen, Middle English. Now, if you understand heathen, the connotation on that would possibly be Gentile, or another word, disbeliever. But according to Chabad Lubavitch, the term is goyim, animal in human form, better to serve the Jew. That comes down to the belief of Adam and Eve in the garden. When Adam was created, he was a singular entity, one singular item, human. His soul was breathed into him by God. Kabbalah goes into it further and says that he was half man, half woman. One half had the man's face, the other half, the backside, had the woman's visage or body, all connected. That is their version of the singular man that had the soul breathed into him. Then at the fall, they were split. It's crazy doctrine, but again, the Torah, that's the written law, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. When they say Torah, it is loaded. If the word just Torah, depending on how it's used, it is all dog whistle. One, people say, oh, it's referring to the Old Testament. No, a lot of the times when the word Torah is used, you have to clarify, are you talking written Torah or oral Torah? If it's oral Torah, therefore it is Talmud, and it is information you are not even supposed to study. And you weren't even supposed to know about it. So profanity has a link to somebody who is on the outside of a temple. Now, their big push is to get the third temple, but I digress. Now, God as one versus the Trinity. If you go to JewsForJudaism.org and you look up an article on there, God as one versus the Trinity. I'm going to read what they have written. The foundation of Christian theology includes belief that God exists as a Trinity and that Jesus is the bodily incarnation of God and acts as a mediator between God and man. Hebrew Christian missionaries claim that this theology is totally compatible with Judaism. I've also noticed that anytime I bring up this topic to an evangelical or any sort of mainstream Christian, the defense they will use is to say, well, though we believe in the Trinity, God is one. Okay, you believe that, but they do not believe that. And since they are the group passing the laws, they are the ones dictating the shots, they are the ones that are going to interpret it. You need to learn how they interpret it so that you can combat it later. Their oneness is loaded 100% to subjugate you in this game. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Deuteronomy 6:4. God's absolute oneness. The commandment to believe in God's absolute oneness was given specifically to the children of Israel, the Jewish people. The concept expressed in this verse, Deuteronomy 6:4, not only refutes the plurality of gods, but also asserts that God is the only true existence. Biblically, God is not only infinite, but he transcends time, space, and matter. God has no beginning and no end, as it states. I am the first and I am the last, and besides me there is no. 5. Isaiah 44:6. Now, I'm not sure about that 5. I don't know how that's translated, but I'm not going to read Isaiah 44:6. Feel free to do that on your own. While Judaism believes that God manifests himself to his creation, humanity, in many ways, i.e. as a judge or a protector, God's essence itself is indivisible and therefore without any possibility of distinction. Something that transcends both time and space cannot be described as consisting of 3 different aspects. The moment we attribute any such distinctions to God's essence, we negate his absolute oneness and unity. Missionaries incorrectly argue that the use in Deuteronomy 6:4 of the Hebrew word for one, echad, rather than the word unique, yahid, teaches that God is a composite unity instead of an absolute unity. They claim that the Trinity is a composite unity similar to a physical object that includes many different individual aspects, i.e. one pen, composed of ink, plastic, and metal. This reasoning is incorrect, since physical objects that exist within the context of time and space cannot be used to describe God, who transcends these dimensions. Prior to creation, God was alone, and concepts of time, space, and the plurality of numbers did not exist. The term unique, yahid, correctly describes God's existence prior to creation, since it indicates the absence of any plurality or of rapport with any created object. So this is basically one pedantic Reddit pissing match about whose opinion on the divine is correct. Now, Trinity breaks God into three. Therefore, you are blaspheming the oneness, you are profaning the oneness of God. To me, this whole topic is absolutely ridiculous. Now, I understand, well, if you have your faith misplaced, it's not going to work. Nonsense. If you're going to fight and get this pedantic, and what's sad is these are the people that want to be your judges when these Noahide laws pass. They're going to pick and choose and knit and cry and whine about this nonsense while you are sitting in judgment so that they can figure out a way to screw you over. What does it mean that God is one when his name is Elohim? Christian view, the word one used here is echad. Christians point to other instances where echad is used to denote a compound unity, and as such they declare that every time echad is used, that it denotes a compound unity, and therefore the Lord must be a compound unity, proving that the Trinity is in the Torah. Jewish response. The word echad in Hebrew actually works in the same way the word one does in English. It can mean either a single unity or a compound unity. Always a loophole with religion. There is always a loophole. Now understand, you think you're good at apologetics? These people are the masters. These Christians are very quick to point to Genesis 1:5, fail to point out verses like these. And Pharaoh sent, and behold, there was not one of the cattle of the Israelites dead, and the heart of Pharaoh was hardened, and he did not let the people go. Exodus 9:7. And it came to pass while they were in the way, that tidings came to David, saying, Absalom hath slain all the king's sons, and there is not one of them left. 2 Samuel 13:30. So shall we come upon him in some place where he shall be found, and we will light upon him as the dew falleth on the ground, and of him and of all the men that are with him there shall not be left so much as one. 2 Samuel 17:12. There is one alone, and there is not a second. Yea, he hath neither child nor brother, yet is there no end of all his labor, neither is his eye satisfied with riches. Neither saith he, for whom do I labor, and bereave my soul of good? This is also vanity, yea, it is a sore travail. Ecclesiastes 4:8. And so that's where the article ends. I come away even more confused after reading that. It's just nonsense back and forth. Either way, the point being, oneness is the term being used. Do not profane the oneness of God. So, any Christian who has any Trinitarian viewpoint via the Nicene Creed is therefore profaning God's oneness. And now they also throw in any way. There's so many ways that they've interpreted this for you to profane God's name. It is unbelievable. But, that said, let's say these Noahide laws are officially enacted. The United Nations is now in Israel. The third temple's been built. And they are pushing via pedophilia blackmail of our senators via Epstein, or whatever blackmail dirt they've got on everybody else. They've got their Hollywood assets in place. They've got the media in place, all working with the intelligence agencies as we see going on now. Trump's presidency is now over because it's 2024, and all the good kosher conservatives and Ziocons who aren't aware of the main threat that Israel actually is are totally on board with this end times eschatology. They just think Jesus is on his way, this is where it's coming, and the Jews are right there with him because the further they get, the third temple's going to be built, the Messiah is going to come. But there's a big difference between Moshiach and your Christian Messiah. So what happens when you are brought in and found guilty as a Christian of breaking these Noahide laws? What is the punishment for wronging this world of pretend opinion nonsense? Well, let's find out. If you go to wikinoah.org, capital punishment in Noahide law. Now, there's a bunch of rabbis that have spoken out on this like crazy with their interpretations. Here's the thing. There's no official authority who can claim pure authority over everybody else. So you just have opinions thrown at the wall. You have different interpretations, different people coming at you from different angles. So I just picked one at random. Just happens to be a Rabbi Moshe Feinstein. Let's see what our fine rabbi has to say. In 1981, the late Rabbi Moshe Feinstein addressed this question in Igrat Moshe. He wrote that the Torah prescribes capital punishment for a number of grave offenses, including murder, certain types of kidnapping, adultery, and idol worshiping. The transgressors in these cases, he explained, are capable of committing all kinds of atrocities and cruel acts for their own benefit. The punishment, however, was not to be inflicted because of hatred for the offender or concern for the survival of society. For it is the Jewish belief that God will punish the offenders. The purpose of inflicting capital punishment for these offenses is to educate people about the severity of the offenses, rather than to end the life of the offender. Either way you look at it, the dude's dead. Jewish law strongly emphasizes the significance and value of every soul, including those of offenders. Yeah, obviously. For this reason, only a 23-member court, a small Sanhedrin, is authorized to try capital crimes. Only prominent scholars well-versed in the wisdom of the Torah, as well as in other scholarly disciplines, who possess excellent values, qualify for membership on this court. Well, that makes me feel a lot better. It's ridiculous that it's even a topic to have capital punishment for anything other than a type of murder or homicide or a manslaughter offense. When you get into the world of pretend, and when you get into adultery, yeah, gays, lesbians, bis, trans, you guys are done for under the Noahide laws. It is absolutely game over. You think they're going to be hard on adulterers? Wait till you read about what they say about sexual immorality, which is also a Noahide law. Keep that open mind and woke social justice when it comes to that game. A candidate must be humble, God-fearing, one who despises money. I'm not even going to say it on this, a lover of truth, beloved by people for his qualities of goodness and humility, and who is sociable, self-composed, compassionate, and not the subject of any gossip. For this reason, a childless person or a very old one who has forgotten the pain of raising children is not qualified for membership on the court, because this person might lack compassion and become unduly harsh with offenders. Furthermore, these righteous and excellent judges cannot try offenders of capital crimes in a court that consists of less than 23 members. In addition, 3 rows of scholars, candidates for serving on the court, are seated in front of the court, watch the proceeding, and alert the court to any error which might lead to an unlawful conviction. These scholars, however, cannot intervene when the error favors the defendant. Circumstantial evidence is inadmissible. To convict the defendant, 2 qualified witnesses who have no material interest in the case are required. Prosecution witnesses are disqualified if they are motivated by a desire to testify in order to escape punishment. The witnesses must be warned about the graveness of perjury in general and in connection with capital punishment in particular. Furthermore, the defendant must have been warned prior to committing the crime about its severity and must have acknowledged an awareness of it. Because of all these requirements, execution of criminals in the Jewish community was rare, taking place only once in many years. Furthermore, capital crimes were tried only at the time of the Holy Temple, in which the Great Sanhedrin, consisting of 71 members, was housed. Following the destruction of the Temple, capital crimes were not tried in Jewish courts, even when they were granted jurisdiction by the state to try Jewish criminals according to Jewish law. These rules, however, applied in normal times when murder was rare and committed as a result of unrestrained passion, or during a dispute over property, or because of injury to one's honor, in case one killed out of cruelty and indifference of the prohibition of murder, or when murder became widespread. The strict evidentiary and procedural rules in favor of defendants in criminal cases were relaxed, and criminals were convicted and executed. Note that the above deals with cases where Jews are governing Jews under Jewish law. With respect to countries such as the United States, one must look at the imposition of capital punishment under Noahide law, which applies to non-Jewish people. So basically everything that we read above is what applies Jew versus Jew. Now, which applies to non-Jewish people, or the power of a king or a state legislature to impose capital punishment based upon the principle of Dina Democrata, Dina, literally the law of the state is the law. The authorization for the imposition of capital punishment and the relevant evidentiary and procedural rules under Noahide law, or the principle of Dina de Malkuta Dina, are entirely different from those under Jewish law. The question of capital punishment under the Noahide Code was discussed in the Talmud. It was decided that all 7 Noahide laws are capital crimes. All 7 Noahide laws are capital crimes. Under Noahide law, one may be executed based on the testimony of one witness or a confession and without a prior warning. According to one opinion, a criminal might be executed under Noahide law based upon circumstantial evidence. According to Maimonides, non-Jews are required to establish a judicial system and apply the Noahide law, including the imposition of capital punishment. It would appear then that American courts might be required under Noahide law to impose capital punishment for the violation of any one of the 7 Noahide laws based upon one witness testimony, circumstantial evidence, or a defendant's confession. So begs the question, why is it different for non-Jews? Well, again, you're goyim. Your soul is that of an animal. It's come from the 3 spheres of Satan. A Jew's soul was breathed in by God, so it comes from the God spark, or the God divine essence. You are an animal in human form to better serve the Jew. Go back to Leviticus, see all the sacrifice that they have of animals. Guess what? If you don't think they don't have their own sacred ritual that puts you in that sacrifice as an animal, you are probably their most sought after sacrifice. Now, I have not read that particularly in the Talmud or the Kabbalah or all the bazillion other books that they've written on this topic, but I guarantee you, promise you, you will find it somewhere. I know it's there just because it makes logical sense. And all the nonsense that they do with their human trafficking, the pedophilia, all the stuff in the Talmud that has been condoned. If you haven't read the Talmud, Jesus is boiling in hot excrement. That's how they feel about your Messiah. This is a racist, supremacist mindset, and they are shoving it into the courts. Now, the Noahide laws are currently have been passed in 1991 with the House Joint Resolution passed by George Herbert Walker Bush, and they're just sitting there. There's really nothing going on with these Noahide laws at the moment, but they're an asset that has been geocached on the battlefield. Now, Ron DeSantis, he went to Jerusalem and passed an anti-Semitism bill. They're limiting our speech. Now look at what the tech titans are doing. They are playing right in line with this. All of our tech companies are being sent over to Israel. See what Benjamin Netanyahu has to say about America and the tech. Now, there's a reason for it. It is based on the Noahide laws. There's a reason for the technology, for the lack of privacy, for the censorship. Everything that they are data mining off of us, whether it's our audio, our text messages, our photographs, phone calls, they're getting a written record on us for judgment. You think I'm crazy? Wait till we keep going. Take some time to research artificial intelligence, big data, connectivity. All right, now let's continue. Similarly, the imposition of capital punishment by a non-Jewish state under the principle of Dina Does not require the application of strict evidentiary and procedural rules as in Jewish law. For instance, the testimony of one witness or the defendant's confession might suffice to convict a defendant. Although the principle of Dina de Milchada Dina was primarily intended to subject Jewish people to the authority of a non-Jewish state, it could, a fortiori, apply also to non-Jewish people. This is because the underlying theories of this principle, e.g. the people's implied consent to the state's authority or the power of the state to expel disobedient inhabitants, applies to everyone. The restrictions in Jewish law on the execution of criminals delineated by Rabbi Feinstein are limited to trials conducted according to biblical law. A Jewish king, however, is not readily compared to those which guide a Jewish king. A Jewish king, however, is not subject to these restrictions and may execute criminals more easily than a Jewish court. The principles which guide a non-Jewish king regarding capital punishment are more readily compared to those which guide a Jewish king rather than those which are applied by a Jewish tribunal. Furthermore, some scholars believe that the power of a non-Jewish king or government to try criminals is based on the Jewish king's prerogatives under Jewish law. Consequently, a non-Jewish king is not subject to the restriction applied to Jewish courts with regard to punishment of criminals. A big push by Chabad Lubavitch is to get put into the United Nations, is to push these Noahide laws into the United Nations under the 2030 agenda. So basically, I'm doing these videos as a word of warning because this is what's coming within the next 11 years. Pay attention. You're going to see everything. This Noahide topic is going to go from zero to the front four of all news, media, and mainstream. It's going to happen. Between now and 2030, it is going to be a huge topic of discussion. Events are going to happen in Israel in a very quick succession. That third temple, guaranteed, is going to be built, I will argue, between now and 2024. The UN is going to be relocated into Israel as well. All of our data, our big tech, is going to be relocated into Israel as well. Now, everybody says that the deep state will be taken out of play. Will it? To me, this whole setup is the ultimate deep state. And where tech is going, where AI is going, it's going to get crazy. So in summary, do not profane the oneness of God. Christians, Trinity, 3. You've split God into 3. You are profaning him. You're guilty. Capital punishment is on the table. That's how ridiculous these Noahide laws are. But you are just an animal in human form. So they don't care about you. Well, maybe for your energy, maybe for your money, maybe for your talent, your slave labor, your energy. But that's it. They're not invested in you as a person. You are just a pawn in their game. Because they are the elites. They are the ones who are the pure and the whole. They are the ones who are the humans with God's soul. They are the intercessors, the intermediaries between us and God. They are the rulers. Everybody else is below them. So take some time and begin familiarizing yourself not only with the Noahide laws, but what they actually intend. Don't take your pastor's word for it. Don't take some talking head that has an agenda. There's a few pastors that actually are subverts paid off to run interference. You'll find them out very quick. Dr. Brown is one of them. That guy is running interference, comparing the Noahide laws, less reality than Santa Claus. Insane. Super high agenda. So pay attention, be wary, educate yourself, and just be ready to fight in the arena of ideas. Hopefully we can keep it in that arena so that it doesn't spill out into the physical. But these guys, the Chabad Lubavitch, has already legislated this nonsense. They've already won since 1991. So we got to figure out a way to push back and get this out. Even though it's just proclamations being read off now, that one House Joint Resolution needs to be removed. Contact senators, contact friends, contact parishioners, contact your bishops, your priests, your pastors, whoever you need to. We got to get these laws removed off the books. All right, that's my topic for tonight. Until next time.